For joining us. Now, the government scheme to roll 6 welfare benefits into one single payment, called Universal Credit, aims to encourage claimants to move back into work. But it's been fraught with problems. And now ministers must decide whether to roll out Universal Credit more widely. Charities have called for it to be paused, saying it's leaving vulnerable people in debt and rent arrears. Our reporter, Emma Vardy, went to visit one man who has been facing difficulties.
I had no choice in the matter. I was told I had to go onto Universal Credit. They said it could take up to 6 weeks to process. I didn't know what I was going to do in that 6 weeks.
Robert Smith is one of thousands of people who've been left with a 6-week gap in their benefits payments after being moved onto Universal Credit.
I've got into arrears. I was living on nothing. I had no benefits too. I didn't know what benefit I was claiming. It just sort of spiraled out of control. The worry, the stress. I'm not knowing whether I'm going to lose my home.
For Robert, family and friends stepped in to help make ends meet. And he got help from Citizens Advice, who say they're seeing this happen all too often.
Universal Credit's designed in a way that people have to wait 6 weeks for their income. If you've not got any savings, if you've just had a week's wages, or you're in debt already, that leaves people really struggling to make ends meet, to pay the bills, and they are getting behind.
The government is due to begin a major rollout of the scheme soon, but Citizens Advice are calling for ministers to hold off.
It's due to accelerate rapidly, so we're going from 5 job centres a month to 50 job centres a month. Now, we think there are serious flaws that need fixing before they do accelerate that rollout.
The government says Universal Credit replicates the world of work. Claimants must pay out rent themselves, in contrast to housing benefit, which was paid direct to landlords. The payments reduce gradually as earnings increase when claimants get back into work. But Citizens Advice says 1 in 5 claimants are not getting their payments on time. The government's plan is for all benefit claimants to be moved onto Universal Credit by March 2022. The Department for Work and Pensions says Universal Credit is helping to get more people into work for longer than the old benefit system. Unfortunately, no one from the government was available to talk to us directly about this today, but they did email us a statement to say that they found the majority of people are comfortable in managing their payments and that for anybody else, there is support available.
We take this example. If you're a single mum with 2 kids working 16 hours, if you tried to work 1 hour more, you'd get 4% of all the money that you earn. The rest of it is taken back in taxes and benefit withdrawal. Under the new system, you get 37 pence for every pound that you earn. So it's really changing lives out there. Yes, there are issues in terms of the implementation, and DWP needs to look at those, it needs to fix them, but let's not say the policy doesn't work, because all the evidence shows that it does.
MPs on the Work and Pensions Select Committee have raised concerns after hearing evidence from council leaders, food banks and charities around the country.
If I was advised of the Secretary of State, I would say, for the sake of claimants and for your political future, I would call a halt to the rollout until we've managed to get on top, if we can, of all these difficulties which all members of Parliament are now getting experience of from their constituents.
Robert's Universal Credit payments have now begun to kick in, but that initial delay means he'll still be paying off the arrears he accrued for some time to come.
Well, we're joined now from Cambridge by the Conservative MP Heidi Allen, who sits on the Work and Pensions Select Committee. Thanks for joining us, Heidi. So,
no problem.
It seems to me that the problem that people are highlighting isn't the principle of universal credit, but a pretty serious flaw, a 6-week delay or even up to 12 or 13 weeks before people get their first payment. I mean, what sort of problems are people suffering in that intervening period?
Well, the difficulty is, Universal Credit is a fabulous system, and when we've ironed out, it's a massive IT change, that's probably at the heart of some of its issues. When we've ironed that out, it really is going to continue to change lives. The difficulty, it's a cultural shift. People have gone from being either having no savings or perhaps being weekly paid to there being a delay in the system because it's not quite ready to roll out at speed, in my opinion. And then it's 6 weeks to wait as well. So there are a few things that are difficult to get people, behaviourally to change, and also the system implementation issues, which for me mean we just need to slow down a little bit and get it right.
Do you think there should be a full pause? I mean, for example, Citizens Advice have surveyed 800 people. 39% had to wait more than 6 weeks. 30% have to make more than 10 calls to the helpline and wait more than 30 minutes to get through.
Yeah, there are some difficulties. We are tantalisingly close to an incredibly revolutionary system change, and I just want us to get it right. We've got some new data that's come out today, which I know the Secretary of State is looking closely at, and that will determine to him, and I know he's looking at it closely, whether or not he wants to push that button on accelerating the rollout. But still, even now, reflecting on sort of the last year, 14% of claimants and new claimants are still not getting any money on time, and 23% are only getting a partial payment on time. And these are people we're talking about with little or no savings at all. They're not people that can turn to their savings account or even to family members sometimes. This is the only income they will have, or certainly enough to top up on top of their working income to make ends meet. We're so close to getting it right, we really just need to pause that rollout.
OK, Heidi, stay with us. And those are really worrying statistics, aren't they?
They are. I mean, it is, as Heidi Allen was reflecting, a very complex system change. And you either decide that you want a fundamental system in which you have one benefit, because we did have overlapping benefits and we did have all sorts of, funny kinks in the system. One thing that the system is very bad at in Britain, in fact it's very difficult across welfare reform, is tapering things off and bringing new things on stream. Partly IT difficulties, but I point to something else. You've got to have consistency at the top in the department. And you had that big falling out, if you remember, that Ian Duncan Smith, who drove this as an idea, he wasn't absolutely practically inclined, and there was a lot of chaos in the department, but he was at the cabinet table, he was speaking for it. In a sense, he had skin in the game. And what I worry about is that this kind of welfare change becomes something that the wonks know about and care about, and that ministers are perhaps, they're not day to day put on the spot about it. And we need much more consistency. All big state reform suffers when you chop people in and out, and cabinet reshuffles are sort of death to these things.
And, Heidi, that is a good point. David Gauke is the 4th Conservative Welfare Secretary in less than 2 years. And Ian Duncan Smith, of course, he was very wedded to this, but he also complained when he left that he didn't want to see £3 billion taken out of it as part of austerity. Universal credit, a good idea that doesn't work in these times?
No, it does work. I mean, there are lots of different things that, if I was Secretary of State, I would tweak or change with it. What really broke Ian's heart were the work allowances and the taper rates, i.e. the amount of money that people keep before it's taken away from them. And he and I and many MPs campaigned last year, and we were successful in getting £1 billion put back into it in the budget or the autumn statement last year. But, whether, times fiscally are still tough, whether that's a possibility, perhaps not, but what we can do is make sure that the system works and that people are getting their money on time. That's the very least we can do, even in difficult financial times as we're in, and that's what we're asking for. I don't actually believe this will cost the government very much if we just pause. This is an IT system, and we need to look, I think, also at how quickly people have access to money. The 6-week wait is an issue. We are seeing more people having access to advance payments, so after a couple of weeks, which on one hand is great. That figure today shows it's gone up from 24 to 47%, which means that work coaches and job centres are really listening to the needs of their clients, which is great. But the fact that so many people need it tells me that 6-week wait just doesn't work. So whether we need to look again, bringing that time back so people can access their money more quickly.
And Toby, one of the big problems is that this is about to roll out to 55 new areas. Do you think that it should be paused?
No, I don't. I mean, if you look at the welfare reforms that have taken place since 2010, I think broadly speaking they've been very successful. One of the objects, after all, was to get more people into work, and the latest unemployment figures show that the unemployment rate is down to 4.3%, which is the lowest it's been since 1975.
But that's the principle, of course. What about these teething problems?
I think, hopefully, David Gauke can make sure that they don't disrupt the rollout, and I hope he doesn't pause it today. I think we need it. OK,
Heidi, I think you kind of maybe revealed something there, that David Gauke was thinking very seriously about this. Have you had a conversation with him? Do you think he is listening to people's concerns?
I do think he's listening, I really do. I'm personally quite worried about it. I've been on the Work and Pensions Select Committee since 15, and I've seen universal credit grow and improve and get better. But I spoke to him earlier in the week, and he is listening, and I know he's going to analyse the data that's coming out now and in the coming weeks very, very closely. I think the other thing that we need to bear in mind that, yes, universal credit does work, and absolutely right, Toby, more people are in work than ever before, but the bulk of the system that's been rolled out so far, what they call their live system, is for single, uncomplicated claimants. So claimants that are well, they have no children, no caring responsibilities. That's a very, very simple system. What the rollout is going to potentially expand into now, October going forwards, is what I call the all-singing, dancing system. So people with caring responsibilities, disabilities, housing benefit. It's a much, much more complex system that has it's only in, I think, 100 of our job centres so far, so we don't have much experience. We're still testing, building it live. We're not ready to roll that out, in my opinion.
And Heidi,
to a greater
do
degree.
you agree with your committee chair, Frank Field, that these problems could result in a human and political catastrophe?
Let's just say it will be an unnecessary own goal, and I don't think we need to put ourselves at that risk.
But we have been talking about these problems for quite a long time, and the government hasn't paused it so far.
No, and to be fair, because the majority of the rollout, as I say, has been for single and complicated claimants, so we haven't seen the teething problems, if you like. It's this new, complete system where people, more complex family units could be put onto the system. That's where we're going to see the issues ramp up in significant volume.
Thanks so much, Heidi. Thanks for joining us.